Oh, hello, Dr. Khayat. Thank you for joining us. One of the shifts, one of the trends you've seen is the shift from hospital care to the home. Why do you believe that's the future?
Yeah, so hospital to home is really one flavor of a broader shift of a paradigm that, one could be characterized by a language like care anywhere. So the home might be the anywhere, but it might be your car, it might be your kid's school, it might be your workplace, it might be when you're walking on the street. And the other is the idea that care now follows the person and not the place. So, that's just driven by the broader trends around this paradigm of time and place used to be constrained. The two had to be co-located, right? The visit-based paradigm. And because equipment, expertise, capital intensive, labor intensive procedures needed to be time shared, we centralized them in these big places called hospitals, clinics, pharmacies, labs, whatever it is. And that constraint just isn't there anymore. That could be fully decentralized and ultimately be out of buildings completely. And that's, the idea of the home.
What are some of the examples of the shift from the hospital to the home?
ER at home is now very possible. There's a group in the US called Dispatch Health that is partnering with big hospitals, and they're diverting about 40% of ER visits to the home. And it's not what's happening here in Canada, which we call virtual ER, where you do your triage from home and then you only come in when they need you. So you're not waiting in a waiting room. This is full on ER in your home. And then other things: chemotherapy at home, dialysis at home, surgery at home, colonoscopy at home, your labs at home, pharmacy at home. I mean, keep adding and adding. And then ultimately, of course, outpatient services do not need to happen at a hospital. So almost all of it.
Hey, I know you've written about the need to change the language of healthcare, even the word care. What do you mean by this?
I often say the biggest barrier to the future of health is mindset. Everything else will fall into place. And language is mindset. And healthcare needs different words to think different thoughts. And so starting with language is a really powerful way to start to shift the way people think, expand people's minds, create a new social reality, and, really unlock and unparadigm things through language.
All right. What are some of the words that really get you going?
So stopping saying things like even the word care is a little bit on the altar right now to be altered because it still carries a paradigm of doing to somebody or for somebody. Bedside is another word that's getting banned. We love to say, from the bench to the bedside or at the bedside. Well, why do people have to be in a bed? It's the worst way to heal, to be laying and unphysical and wearing a gown. And, you lose a lot of agency and power. So it's at the point of care. Well, the point of care can now be anywhere.
We've got this generation of baby boomers just coming onto the scene now. How are they going to change things? Or I should say, we going to change things?
So the first boomers started turning 70 a couple years ago. I think they'll start turning 75 shortly. One was born every 10 seconds. Okay, think about that. As a species, we have never had a society with this many people over the 65 in the history of our species. So every social norm, every policy, these arbitrary dates like when you retire, when you can, do different things, they don't make sense because right now, on average, you and I, after the age of 65, will be alive around 8,000 days. That's 21 years. That's an entire age window that's been created that didn't exist. And so really very little has been designed for that this boomer segment because nobody has ever had to do that. And that's what's coming in the future of aging, and not just in healthcare, right? In all products, services, policies, categories, and social norms will be reinvented in the next decade.
Oh, that's interesting. Today's event is about technology. Can you talk to us more about how technology can keep us out of the hospital?
I often think what technology will do in the future of healthcare, and particularly aging, is on three levels. And I think we have to unpack these levels. The first is the basic level, just digitizing a bunch of analog and manual and very labor intensive and extremely clunky processes. That could include digitizing care delivery. So, care anywhere, of course, allows you to break that paradigm of time and place. But other things like just the way we process information, filling out a form on paper on a clipboard every time you have an interaction with a piece of the health system. All that goes away as you just digitize the analog. Okay, that's basic stuff. That's going to take friction out of healthcare and just make it, flow a little. But that's not going to, solve the financial crisis of healthcare, and it's certainly not going to create the kind of outcomes we want. The next level is now when you digitize things is you've got, an intelligence-based healthcare system. Information flows, it's in real time. So this movement from we call an evidence-based healthcare system, which is that old academic top-down, only a few people can interrogate the data, to an intelligence-based, science-based system. That is a big change, and we're just scratching the surface. We saw a lot of amazing, amazing ways this is going to happen when we saw data cycles in COVID, right? We were crunching data in a way we never did before. And then the third is just these new therapeutic models and options that literally were not possible without true technology. So, I look at categories like 3D printing. Well, that could basically eliminate the entire pharmaceutical manufacturing and pharmacy industry. Virtual reality as a digital therapeutic, which could replace other therapeutics, autonomous vehicles, and just some really neat sensors. So that third category is where this word disruption comes in, because it literally displaces entire industry categories and ways of doing things that were the dominant paradigm for like 150 years.
What are some of the technologies that will help us stay in our homes and keep us out of the hospital?
So a lot of that is monitoring equipment because we want to have vital signs. We want to be alerted immediately if something looks off track. Well, that can totally be done in the home. That industry's been around a very long time. It's called remote monitoring. What's happening now is, these 12 or 13 or sometimes 15 vital signs, they don't need to be picked up using the old clunky beige equipment that only 4 or 5 manufacturers in the world could make. They could be in your underwear. That's a Canadian company called Myant. It makes that. It could be in your T-shirt. That's another great Canadian company that's suiting up the folks in the International Space Station. That can measure vital signs. It could be on your wrist, in your skin, under your skin, on a tattoo. It could be in your bed sheets. It could be in your wheelchair. It could be in your shoes. So these just different way to get sensors to gather information to monitor in real time and just alert you or a care provider or your doctor when things look off track. We can move from a reactive sick care system to a proactive but even predictive. So predictalytics, predictive diagnostics, this is a new way to practice medicine that never existed because you're going to catch things before you even have a symptom of it going off track and then intervene before you ever, get sick. So very big changes coming.
And so, what does aging look like in, say, 10 or 20 years?
If I have to summarize into three things, I say it's agency. So power, choice, it's being reclaimed by older adults and their families in a way it never really was given to them in the first place, in all decision making. The second is hyper personalization, segmentation, really this kind of segment, N of one, that people will get things highly tailored to their individual situation, their biology, their preferences, their experiences. And the third is life care, not health care, that you'll deliver care based on the fully loaded view of what's going on in a person's context. And their medical situation is just one data point in that story that will be, you need to do life care to do good medical care. That's a big shift.
Wow, so much to think about. It really was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Great to speak to you too, Ron.